Right on, writers, and welcome first-time viewers back to the Books by ADRIAN author platform. I forgot my own title for a second. I am your host, ADRIAN Santiago, and this is Typewriters Podcast, a sort of companion piece to Livestream Sunday, where we kind of deflate after the production and spend a little one-on-one time with our guests, talk about our craft and about the show that we just did. So like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Don't make me tell you again. It's easy. Just click the button. Let's bring our guest back out here. The one, the only, the great and powerful Mike DeFrench. Mike!
What's up, man?
What's up,
That was
dude?
a great show.
Dude, I'm pleased. I don't know about you, but I'm pleased. I thought that went very well. Oh, you know, technical difficulties aside, Wi-Fi, fucking.
I mean, even with technical difficulties, I think that was a killer show. That was great.
I appreciate that, man. It 50% of it is the guest. Absolutely. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. It was fun. I'm glad that we got through everything that I wanted to get through. This show is a little more, laid back. It's a little more conversational. Just you and I kind of shooting the shit, gabbing, and as I said, kind of it's like a debrief after the mission. So in talking about writing and how we do it, you write your short stories, you write your novels. You've got your short stories being collected into volumes and coming out very soon. You've got killer covers, you've got multimedia aspects to all this stuff. How do you find the time, bro? You're a father with 2 kids just like me. How do you find the time to do all this stuff?
Stop sleeping. You spend so much of your time sleeping that if you just cut that out, you'll have a lot more time to write and do other shit. But it will affect your mental health and your physical health. It does have some negative side effects to
some
it.
Detractors, so sure.
Yeah, you got to weigh those odds. But no, another thing is try to work in 15-minute segments, at least as far as the writing itself goes. Like if you're trying to write something, try to figure out, okay, I can get this many words done in 15 minutes if I'm really focused, and then find those different parts of 15 minutes that you can work into your day to build onto whatever your project is. And you can do a lot with a few 15 minutes here or there throughout your day. You can get
the whole
sprinting
sprinting mentality, right? Do little short bursts and get through it that way, huh?
Sprinting, but not word vomit. Every time I feel like I hear sprinting, it's associated with word vomit. Like, just get it out and don't worry about the quality of it. I would say don't do that. Don't ever do that. And that works for some people. For me, if you're like me, never ever write something that you think I'm gonna fix later. Because fixing it later is the worst part of writing.
Right. You mentioned that you're not too fond of the editing. You just feel like getting it right the first time and moving on.
Yeah, hate that. Yeah, I have entire novels that I've restarted because I would rather write it I'd rather take the idea and go from the beginning and try to get something good the first time through than to fix something that didn't work.
Well, then let's talk about the roots then, because, every author does it their own way. You've got your plotters, you got your pantsers, you got your architects and your gardeners, which are a little, intense versions of the previous two. What's your process like? It sounds like you're kind of stream of consciousness pantsing it, unless I'm misunderstanding. It doesn't sound like you're plotting ahead. You're just sitting down and writing.
Yeah, no, definitely pantsing, 100%.
That's terrifying to me. That's the scariest thing in the world. I can't do it.
So the problem with me is as soon as I sit down and plot something, when I go to write it, I'm bored. Because I already
feel like you've already written it.
Yeah, I already feel like I did all the fun parts. So to me, plotting is the fun parts, figuring out where this is going to go and what happens. That's the fun part. So if I do that before I even start writing it, then it's just all like manual labor. It's like moving dirt from one pile to another.
Interesting.
Has no interest to me. My creative mind will just shut off and I won't be able to write anything.
It's so fascinating to me how we're all so different, man. Because for me, plotting is literally that. It's just plot. But for me, the most important thing of any story is character. And so while I'm plotting, I'm literally just writing down, these are the story beats that I want to hit as I go. But then when I sit down to write, I consider myself more of a gardener. I plan what I'm going to write, my plot. But once I start writing, I'm discovering the characters. And that's where like things change. And I'll often have to go back to my outline and fix it and change it up, you know, to fit this new idea that came out of when I was actually writing. And it kind of evolves that way. But yeah, man, it's just so funny how we all do it a little different. You know, I was watching an interview between George Martin and Stephen King, and you know, two incredible writers, each in their own right. Stephen King far more prolific; he gets a lot more books done. You know, George R. Martin takes a lot longer to get a book done. And one of the things that George asked him was like, how the fuck do you write so many books so fast? And Stephen King is like, well, if I want to write, you know, a 380-page book in 2 months, that's 6 pages a day. So I just write 6 pages a day. I just sit down and write 6 pages a day. And George Martin's like, this does not compute. How do you do this?
Yeah.
It's so funny, man. Like,
I've been working on one book for the last
11 years.
11 years.
I'm still waiting, George.
I think I've seen that interview. Yeah, I don't think A Song of Ice and Fire will ever be finished. Personally,
Dude,
not by George Martin.
I'm an optimist. I have high hopes. You know, I see a future where he goes full vegan and loses about 200 pounds and adds another, you know, 10, 15 years to his life and gets both final books out. But, you know, that's just me. Fingers crossed. I love that series, man. I take a lot of inspiration from his books for my own. You know, the point of view chapter structure that he uses in those books, I kind of stole and put into my books. So fingers crossed for George. Fingers crossed for George.
I think he's one of the best
he's fantastic
writers in fantasy in terms of getting into a character's head.
Yes,
he is incredible, and
that's what he taught me.
Yeah, I advocate a lot of writers to type in other authors' works.
Mm-hmm.
I
remember that on your TikTok. That was the first thing I saw from you, I think, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta follow this guy. He's got some ideas."
Yeah, that was the first time I ever had a video go like even remotely viral.
Mm-hmm.
It got like a ton of views. But yeah, I mean, you can learn a lot by like just literally taking the book and typing it in yourself, just how you would type your own book, and kind of learn from them as if you're like. I think I equated it to playing a song. Like if you want to learn guitar, playing somebody else's song, learning to write somebody else's chapter. Like write the beginning of some of George Martin's chapters. He is so good at just taking you from one word into holy crap, you forget that you're even reading because you're entirely inside of this character's mind. Yeah.
We were talking last week, excuse me, with Garrett Robinson about George Martin and the fact that this dude writes 3 stories in one at least, which is to say that you've got the main plot going on right now in the story. You've got the history of the world that is also being unfolded before you as you read. That's the second story. And then he has like this astrological thing going on where he has like constellations in his universe that all have backstories to them and are mirrored in the stories of the characters. And so when you're reading about, you know, Jaime Lannister, the golden haired knight, he's a reference to like the sun, and then his sister is a reference to the moon, and like things that happen between them are telling you what happened to the sun and the moon thousands of years ago. And I'm like, how the fuck does this dude do this? It takes him 11 years, but he does it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's incredible.
I think Brandon Sanderson is even more impressive.
He's so good too, man.
He's doing, and we'll see how that pans out. But as it's looking right now, I don't think he's stopping anytime soon. I think he's gonna way surpass Martin and be remembered way more.
I think eventually you might be right, especially once more of his stuff gets adapted. It's going to bring a wider and wider audience to him as well. So here's looking forward to that. Dude, I remember that TikTok where you were talking about, rewriting somebody else's chapter. And you're not the first person to suggest that. I saw somebody else, and I can't remember what writer it was. I wish I could remember off the top of my head who suggested it. But you explained it in a way that made it click for me when you equated it to learning a song, because in my teen years I was in punk bands and stuff like that, and I'm a terrible guitarist, so that's punk is the only thing that I could play, power chords and stuff like that. But that's how I started learning, was playing other people's music. I would look up the music sheet and just, he does this and this, and just trying to mimic whatever they were doing until I learned how to play a song. Before I could ever learn to write my own thing, I had to learn how they did it.
Dude, yes. And
once
so
you tie
get
that
it
together.
So like when you're especially reading from tabs instead of, like sheet music.
Sure.
You have to like look at the tabs and you see where your fingers go. Mm-hmm. And so you get how to place your fingers to make the sound, but you don't get how to make the sound that they were making in the song until you play that chord enough times to be like, okay, they did it. They were holding it this way and they strummed in this way.
Yeah.
Until you can actually get it. Like that's how writing is. Like you can say somebody used these words in italics and they had their paragraph break here and, whatever. But you don't really, 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 really get it until you put it through your hands enough times that it starts to just like, it's like muscle memory. It's just like playing music is muscle memory. A lot of writing is muscle memory. Like you want to be able to just kind of like, as you're writing, flow straight into anything that you've learned,
Yeah. And, I one of the first things I did after seeing that from you was I went to book 1, chapter 1 of Game of Thrones, and I looked at that first paragraph, but the first line, I was like, he sets up everything in this first line. He sets up the world, the season, the fact that it's medieval, the fact that like everything in that like first
effortlessly.
Sentence.
Yeah, he
makes it look so easy, and it wasn't until I was like, let me write this out and see how exactly he's doing, because you're right, it's exactly like, it's not just that as you're writing, you're giving people setting and emotion and sensors, what's it called, like sensory applications. Like it's how they all kind of weave together and flow, and you don't learn that until you're like writing what other people have written. I'm trying to do that more and more now, especially before starting book 2, because I'm writing a series, and once book 1 is completely done and off to the printing, I'm diving into book 2, man. And before I do that, I'm going to do a lot more of that, writing other people's stories. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, I recommend anybody to just go ahead and type out the entirety of the prologue for A Clash of Kings, where it's the old maester trying to slip the poison, and see how he takes, because in the entire book 1, Stannis is never a point of view character.
Never on screen.
Stannis isn't in the book.
Nope.
He's only mentioned. But his character never shows up. And so that prologue, I mean, it is just amazing what he does in the prologue of A Clash of Kings. Write it 100 times until you can try to see what he did, because I don't even think he knew what he did when he was doing it. He just, he had read so much epic fantasy. It was just so ingrained in him. And I think he wrote Clash of Kings, like, Game of Thrones came out, and then I think Clash of Kings came out the next year or something like that. A year or two, and then Storm of Swords like a year or two after that, and then there started being these delays. But like Clash of Kings, he was in his freaking zone.
Yeah.
And that prologue, man, is just so good. It's from a throwaway character, like throwaway as in like they're only ever in that one chapter.
He kills off his prologue and epilogue characters.
Yeah. And it is just amazing. I highly recommend just type that whole thing out and see what he did. How he takes the setting of, was it called Dragonstone? Dragonstone. How he can describe the setting of Dragonstone and at the exact same time build. I mean, it's like an 80-year-old character, the history of an 80-year-old character into all of this and into the plot that has gone on in Game of Thrones and is going to go on in Storm of Swords. It's incredible. If you want to see a master at work, the prologue of A Clash of Kings is phenomenal.
That book is one of my favorites, man. The Battle of Blackwater in that book is just mind-blowing. There's so much good shit in that book, man. Clash of Kings is really good. Clash of Kings is really, really good.
It's really good. All of them are really good. I mean, I love that series. I just don't think that he's going to finish it.
I know. I'm just, hope.
I would love him to finish it.
I really would too. He's sounding a lot more positive about it these days. He has been bummed out for a while about finishing Winds of Winter, and his latest 2 updates have been very upbeat, very positive. He's writing, he's feeling good about what's going on. It feels like it's moving, and I'm just like, come on, George.
Dude, give it to me. Give me those books.
Give it to me. Oh man, but yeah, dude, yeah, it's good stuff. And Neil Gaiman is another one that's just like that, where I'm gonna start doing that with him too, because the stuff that he does is right up there with George Martin.
I've never typed in Neil Gaiman.
I'm gonna start doing that stuff, man, because he's good like that too. Plus, he's got that British voice to him, so it almost feels fantasy even when it's not. You know what I mean? Like it's got this kind of old Earth kind of feel, no matter what he's writing. So, I dig that he does a lot with that, with his voice.
So what is your favorite from Gaiman?
My favorite from Gaiman might be an easy answer, the go-to, but it is this bad boy right here. If I can, American Gods. I don't know if you've read it. This particular edition also has a little short story sequel to it called The Nancy Boys. And not longer than a short story, a novella. It's a novella. American Gods, if you haven't read it, is absolutely fantastic. Set in what we would consider the real world, but it's fantasy as fuck, man. It's all about the war between the old gods and the new gods, and the one man stuck between them, and it's just so good. That's my favorite by him, but I love so many. I mean, half of the books up here are Neil Gaiman. Graveyard, the Graveyard book, which is the Jungle book, but set in a graveyard instead of the jungle.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so like Mowgli, instead of talking to animals, he sees ghosts and vampires and werewolves.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, so good. What else? Neverwhere, which is like the London Underground, but literally underground. It's with fantasy characters. Great. Short stories. He does a lot of great short stories. He's got Smoke and Mirrors. Fantastic. And Stardust, of course. Lots of Neil Gaiman in here. And of course, Lord of the Rings. I got some George Martin in here. Yeah, it's all good stuff.
Yeah,
obviously these are not all my books, but
my favorite is absolutely American Gods. I love that book.
It's so good. It's so good. And here's the best lesson that I learned from Neil Gaiman, and it comes from American Gods. You see how beautiful this edition is. Obviously, this is not the first printing. he has printed this book many, many times before he got to this very, very nice edition, right? The pages are almost transparent, like a Bible. You know what I mean? Like it's a really, really nice edition. And yet I find typos and mistakes in there when I read it. And it tells me that one of the greatest authors of our generation, with access to some of the greatest editors in our generation,
No.
still has typos
with editors that were paid thousands of dollars to find those typos and fix them.
And there's still typos
that
in there.
Probably a computer program would have found. Yeah, no. There's no magic in traditional publishing.
So whenever
there's no
people are
perfect book
upset about, my book, it has all these, I'm like, who cares, dude? There's no such thing as the perfect book. A Song of Ice and Fire has typos in it. Like it's always gonna happen.
The terms of service agreement for Amazon Prime has typos in it. Okay, you realize how many fucking lawyers have been over that shit? Everything, there isn't a such thing as a perfect book. And if you are a aspiring writer that is troubled by having your book be perfect before you publish it or something like that, watch the lecture. It's called The Pursuit of Perfection by Christine Catherine Rush. Okay? She is amazing. She's a very prolific, very successful fantasy and sci-fi writer. She's written epic fantasy series. Like, what do you got?
You know. If you know, you know. It's a doorstop. It's a doorstop that says Hodor.
Hodor.
Sorry, continue.
You're good. No. So look up The Pursuit of Perfection by Christine Catherine Rush. And it is literally an entire lecture. I think she gave it at the. Have you heard of 20 to 50K? Okay. No, that's another big one to look up. Look up, especially if you want to indie publish. 20 books to 50K.
Oh, yes, I have heard of that. I haven't dove into it yet, but yes, I did hear about that.
Dive into that because I mean I hate Facebook with a passion, not for any real reason other than just like the platform itself. I hate it. But 20 books to 50K is a group on Facebook. Invaluable information that you're going to get from these people. It has so many successful indie authors talking about what they did and what their processes are. It's if you're indie publishing, be in that group because you can learn so much. And then if you do something successful, you can share it there and help other people too.
Beautiful.
That's better than any subreddit, any group that I've found is 50 books to 20K on Facebook.
20 books to 50K.
Yeah, so you had to go through like some sort of vetting process to get into the group, but you had to you had to like just, it's basically like saying what books you've published or what you want to publish or something like that, just to make sure that you're not just like going on there to spam advertisements. And it's not spam, like they delete everything that's like sort of spam advertisements. It's just about people talking about more of the business side of it and what has worked in sales and what results they've gotten in sales and spending on ads and stuff like that. It's I think it's a great group.
I'm gonna check it out for sure. I've got a group of my own on Facebook that I don't really do much with other than occasionally promoting my own stuff and sharing like little writing memes and stuff that I find. I've been looking for something more productive to do with it because I'm like you. I'm not a huge fan of Facebook. I had a personal Facebook for years. I don't do anything with it anymore. It just sits there. I don't communicate with anybody on there. I really just have it now for this platform and the group and whatnot. So that'll give me something to do when I am on there. I appreciate that. Sounds good. Sounds good.
It's like the only reason I have Facebook is that group.
Fair enough.
It's very good.
Right on.
And,
sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's just like a lot of people that are doing the same thing that we are trying to do, that have seen a lot of success, go on there and just no bullshit, just say what they did and what worked and what didn't work. And it's great to especially see the people that were successful, with no bullshit, just say what they did, what they wrote, what genre, how they promoted it, and see their results. And it's very inspiring to see, like, people doing the same exact thing that, we're doing and making big bucks out of it. And
that's the goal,
it just reminds you how possible it is. It's super, super, super possible.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit on Livestream Sunday about the traditional publishing thing and the literary agents and all that stuff. And the whole time I'm thinking about the whole reason why I decided to go self-publishing is because I talked to traditionally published authors and I talked to self-published authors. And the thing I was hearing from literally every traditionally published author was, I had to write so many books and query so many books and try for years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever it was, until I finally got published. And then I had to keep publishing more and more books for many, many years before I started turning a profit. And I'm just like...
And you had to do all that self-promotion bullshit too.
And I'm just like, that sounds awful.
You don't get any benefit from being traditionally published except for getting your money sucked away from you.
And like one lady was telling me that, she was publishing books for a good 20 years before she was able to finally quit a day job and be full-time author. And I'm just like, I need to put out a book and be able to quit my day job like a year later. Like I'm not playing this shit no more.
Dude, I would say it's probably like somewhere in the neighborhood of 90% of traditionally published authors are not making a full-time living from their book sales.
Yeah.
There's no way.
I need to.
Me too, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Because there's just nothing worse than punching a clock for somebody else's business, making them millions of dollars, and I can barely, pay my rent on time. It's just like, nah, dude. Like I need to be able to do what I love and make money doing that. And what I love to do is writing. So
that's what we're designed to do as human beings, as
do
like
what you
spiritual
love.
beings.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I have pie in the sky dreams. I would love to run a show, be a showrunner and run a writer's room for a TV show someday.
I think you would do a great job at that.
I thank you very much. That's part of my goal with this book as well. I've talked about it on the channel before that for my story structure, I went with what I learned from the Screenwriter's Bible. I'm writing novels, but I structure them as a film. With the story beats that a film hits, because number one, I want them to be easily adaptable later on. Whether I make them into movies or TV shows or somebody else does, I want it to be easy for them to be as faithful as possible to the source material, because that's, like everybody else, I care about that kind of thing. But it also will make it easier to sell, I think, if it's already structured like what they want and need in order to do it. So that's kind of where I'm coming at, where like I want to write great books and be a great novelist, but also I want to be able to sell this to a movie studio, because that's where the money is. I might not make all the money off of the book, but I might make some money off of the movie.
So you're doing epic fantasy, right?
It's this first book is a murder mystery sci-fi fantasy world. As the series goes on, it'll get more and more fantasy and more sci-fi. Those two will overpower things a little more. But yes, it's epic stuff. I'm trying.
Why don't you knock out a couple of short stories that are in the same universe?
I plan on doing that as well. Yeah, in between book 1 and 2, I plan on writing at least 2 short stories, if not up to 5 if I can swing it, to put out like a little like reader magnet type dealie before the book, or maybe in between book 1 and 2, put it out, so that not only do people not have to wait 3 years for the next book, which is honestly what it might take me to write it, but they'll have a little something to hold them over, and yet it's still the same universe. Tells maybe stories in the history rather than in the current timeline, and kind of flesh the world out that way. Sure, yeah. It's in the.
I also think that short stories are more easily adaptable to film than novels. Novels are too big.
Yeah, and it also
you can't put everything in there.
It also helps you as a writer to like get to the end more often. You know what I mean? Like, the more the ends you write, the better and better of a writer you become. You know, I have been working on this novel for almost 3 years now. It's a labor of love. I don't regret it, but it would be awesome to have put out 2 books in that time. You know what I mean? So
it's an awful analogy might be like, imagine if you were like some playboy and you never got to the end with like, you know, so many partners, and then and you're like, well, I'm working on getting to the end with this one specific person. You'd be a shit playboy, you know?
Yeah, man, that's not a good playboy. Nobody's satisfied.
You're not a playboy at all. You're a fail boy.
Yeah. That's actually a really good analogy. I think it works really well. My guy, was there anything that you wanted to talk about on Livestream Sunday that maybe we didn't get to, or anything that you kind of wanted to touch on with your projects? Anything at all that maybe I didn't ask or the audience didn't ask?
No, I think we got to everything. Amphetamine Daydreams on Substack to keep up with it. Amphetamine Daydreams on Amazon, and the physical release if you want to keep up with the kind of chronological order of the canon, I guess. But no, I think we hit everything.
Right on. One thing I remember now I wanted to ask you about before we wrap up is, your actual novels. You write a lot of short stories, but your actual novels, they have kind of a theme to their covers. They all kind of look very similar. Are they all a series? Are they all standalones? Why do they look so similar to each other? What's that all about?
They aren't. So I was going with like a branding approach. So I wanted like my horror suspense to kind of be a brand together, and then my sci-fi to be a brand together, fantasy a brand together. Now I'm kind of like just mashing everything that fits into the Amphetamine Daydreams brand, and then I might do a re-release of the novels. Like, I'm serializing them kind of in order in Amphetamine Daydreams. So I might probably will do a re-release in time. But for now, the only reason that they're really... So there's 2 of them, Voyeur.exe and Game We Don't Play Anymore, are kind of joined together, but Requiem for a Black Rose is more of its own thing, but it's also tied to the same universe. A lot of connected universe stuff is going on, so it's going to be easier once everything's kind of under the Amphetamine Daydreams umbrella to explain the connectivity of everything.
Right on. I don't know why, but those 2 books were the ones that jumped out at me when I was looking at books to mention for you. The Game That We Don't Play Anymore and Voyeur.exe. Those were the 2 titles that I was like, okay, these are the 2 that I'm going to mention among all of his titles. Why are those 2 so special to you, do you think?
Well, I think the cover for Game We Don't Play Anymore is really good. I think that draws a lot of people in. Voyeur.exe,
it's got a cool title.
Yeah, I think it has a title that will draw people in. You know, you're kind of like curious about what the heck that means.
It's funny because, now I on a previous season of Livestream Sunday, I had a guest who writes erotic fiction, BDSM erotic fiction specifically, and so the title of that episode was Talking BDSM erotic fiction with and the author's name, who's escaping me right now. That is my number 1 viewed video.
I
and it's because it's a bunch of like, you know, perverts looking for BDSM stuff, and they all jump off after like a minute. Like everybody watches a minute and they're like, this isn't what I want, and then they're out. So like when I saw voyeur.exe, I'm like, click.
There we go. That's not the best-selling one though. The best-selling one is Game We Don't Play Anymore by a lot.
Also cool time.
People really like that one.
I can't wait to read.
It's also the only book that has a chick on the cover. Might be that. I don't know.
That might be helpful.
I have to experiment with my covers more. Put more girls on them. I don't know.
The amphetamine daydreams have a couple of like very pretty but creepy girl faces on the cover, right? And then all
dude,
that.
I have some amazing ones for the future that are in the exact same style of like, you know, face with explosion of like madness coming out. Yes. So good. Dude, I love it. I don't know how I stumbled onto that, but I was like, this is working perfect. Let's repeat this as many times as possible.
It's working for you really well. I recently went to a cover artist on around that area right now with my book, and I sent her a very rough little sketch of like my idea of what a good cover might be for my book, and I told her, you know, interpret this however you will and figure it out. And she came back at me with like, this isn't gonna work for a cover, man. It's too busy. It's too much stuff going on. Like, I can't do all these buildings. And I'm just like, oh, okay, fine. I'll go to somebody else. You know, it's like, I wish I was more artistically inclined, but I might take a page out of your book and give it a try with those AI generators, because you're
give it a shot, dude. The worst you're gonna do is like lose $5, and then still have some sick art that you can use for whatever you want. You know, there's no loss, because everything you create, you can still use, even if you don't use it for a cover. You use it for a blog post, whatever. It's yours.
Mike, I'm a fan. You have made a fan out of me.
I'm a fan. You made a fan out of me, man. This was so much fun.
That's what I'm going for, man. I'm going for fun. And information and education and support and community, and we're just here to help each other out, man, because writing is such a solitary action that we do, a solitary craft, and it doesn't have to be. We can all just kind of hold each other up a little bit and help each other out. So
yeah, man,
that's what we're here for, man.
It's very true. It can be lonely, man, especially when you're like got your head buried in some project and feel like you're the only one that gets what's going on in your brain. You know, that can get very lonely.
My prologue for my novel only exists because after a mushroom trip, I had to write a short story about the mushroom trip. So I wrote what I thought was a short story, and then I was like, shit, this is like a prologue to a novel. So then I kept writing and I turned it into a novel, and then I'm like, shit, this is the first novel of a trilogy. It just kind of kept.
That is what happens to me anytime I try to write anything longer than like, all right, I'm gonna write a 1-paragraph story.
Yeah.
Then that might be like 8,000 words.
Yeah.
If I give myself any sort
words.
of like, if I give myself any sort of leeway, it's like, all right, we got an 8-book series now. I'm like, fuck no, dude, I don't want to fucking write an 8-book series, man.
My editor and all my critique partners have all told me the same thing. They're like, dude, your prologue is too long. And I'm like, okay, what do I cut out of it? They're like, I have no idea. We can't cut any of this. I'm like, that is not too long.
You just got to make the rest of your material longer so that it's short in comparison.
The rest of the chapters are fairly standard, around 5K per chapter. They're fairly
what's
reasonable.
The prologue?
The prologue is, okay, so it's a murder mystery, right? So in chapter 1, there's a detective.
You got chapters in your prologue?
No. I'm just trying to like give you context. In chapter 1 of the book, in other words, the following chapter, we meet the actual main character. She's a detective. There's a crime scene, and there's 2 dead bodies. The prologue is introducing those victims to you while they were still alive. One of them is a point of view character, and so I felt like if I'm much like George Martin in Clash of Kings, if I'm introducing a character and I know that she's dead in the next one.
Read your prologue. Is it in a barn?
I sent it to you. In a what?
A barn?
It is
Or
not
like
in a barn.
A farmhouse?
She's from a farm.
She's from a farm.
She's from a farm. She's out of the farm. It's in a city, but she is from a farm. So you might be like, maybe you started it.
No, I don't know. I had some TikTok posts where I asked people to send me stuff, and then I've had other people ask me to read their like prologues and chapters and stuff.
Well, I sent it to you.
Everything kind of like blurs together. I
I'm
have not read what
thoughts.
you sent to me yet, just because I've had my head buried kind of in getting the first 3 volumes of Infinity.
Oh yeah, dude, we're all super busy. It's good
on reading that.
At your leisure, my friend. At your leisure, no problem at all.
I just didn't know if I might have read it before.
No, I don't think so.
I mean, my own stuff blurs together. Like I don't remember what I write myself. Like people ask me like what I meant, or if I remember writing about whatever sentence and whatever story. I'm like, dog, I don't remember.
Especially if you're a pantser.
I don't remember what I wrote this morning. Yeah, as a pantser. So that's why I think that if we ever did that short story thing together, like live stream short story thing,
write the damn story. Yeah,
that could be very interesting, because I'm like plotting. Just dive right in. I use a name generator and figure out what the fuck is going on as I go.
That was part of the challenge with the first person that I did it with. I did it with a writer named Martin Lejeune. He's a British writer, so already he has a very different voice in his writing. His writing is also very funny, where mine tends to be a little darker. And then on top of that, I am a plotter to an extent. He does outline his stuff, but in spreadsheets. I don't do spreadsheets. So like it was a very, very like 2 very different minds coming together to write a story. It's fun. It's in a playlist on my channel. You should check it out.
I will check it out, man. And I loved what I was in for as a participant. So I want to go through and see all the writers that you talk to now.
So far it's only been that one that's done Write the Damn Story. You're next up, because you know you're the first person since to express interest.
Oh man, that sounds like a blast. That sounds like, I mean, we get into some real good stuff,
some shenanigans for sure.
Yeah.
And in the first episode, we do a lot with since it's live, we do a lot with the audience and figuring out what's our story going to be. You know, they'll throw up some prompts.
Just dude, that would make plotting really fun.
It's going to be a blast, bro. I will be in touch. You know, I've got Livestream Sunday going for the next 14 weeks. And if I keep to my schedule writing wise, my book should be coming out right around the time when this season of Livestream Sunday ends. So I will be open to writing new stuff at that point. And Write the Damn Story is going to be making a comeback. So I will be coming to you, my friend, for sure.
Dude, hit me up anytime. Anytime.
I'm down. We are out of time, Mike. We're all out of time. I want to keep going, but
yeah, me too. I had a fantastic time. We'll do it again.
Oh yeah,
sometime.
This was a blast. We'll keep collaborating for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much for coming, man. For everybody at home, the website is in the description for Mike DeFrench. Sign up to his newsletter. Go check him out on TikTok. This guy gives great writing advice. Dude, you've been a fantastic guest. Thank you so very much for coming.
You've been a fantastic host. This has been a pleasure.
From your lips to my ears. Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. Everybody, like, comment, subscribe. Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And until next time, I will see you guys on Sunday with our next guest. And happy writing. Write on, writers.
Yeah. Right on.